I'm sure if I go out there and talk to those ponies, they'll see that they're being unreasonable.
I need 100 blankets, and I need them now! Sorry, Twilight.
We haven't seen Twilight crushed by a door for a while. Good to see it back.
My little pony, my little pony. My little pony. I used to wonder what friendship could be. Until you all shared its magic with me.
Hey, every pony, welcome back to Pony Talk. Well, keeping the trend of videos inspired by other bro analysis people, this video was actually inspired by a video Dr. Wolf put out recently. In it, he talked about how the slapstick humor from the first season has kind of faded away as the years have gone by. And he's kind of right, actually. It was something I didn't notice until I watched this video, but yeah, there have been very few slapsticky moments since about season 2. We just don't have those hard-hitting Looney Tunes style antics that much anymore. Which is why that scene from Fame and Misfortune stood out to me. And yeah, thinking back on it, I am kind of having trouble remembering any moment like that in the past couple seasons. It could be that just because there's so much content, it is hard to pinpoint those moments, or it could be they have moved away from them. And the reason I mentioned season 2 is because I think that is when they started to make the changeover. I think that's when the show went from more slapstick-based comedy to more character-based comedy. And that's because of the moral lesson device of that season. In season 1, it was only Twilight writing the letters to Princess Celestia, so the others could have more room to be a little more crazy and fall into slapstick. But once the rest of the main six started writing letters and episodes would focus on them, the staff had to develop their personalities even more. We already had the basis for them throughout season 1, but now they could build on that foundation, and I think during that, having them be crazy and go into slapstick mode became less and less important, or at least harder to justify. And again, I'm sure there are some really good expressions in season 1, but I think this is about the time we start getting the meme-worthy expressions. And thus, the style of humor changed from deadpan reactions to over-the-top reactions to snarky ones. You know, it's basically more the characters' reaction off each other than crazy situations. Except, of course, for Pinky, who will always be a Looney Tune no matter what. And I think this has helped evolve the show into what we know it is today. And I do think part of that was, well, us, the Brony fandom. Or at least the older parts of the Brony fandom. Because remember, Hasbro became aware of us pretty early on. So I think when they realized we were still watching that they could get away with slightly more advanced stories and humor. But of course, the real driving point is always going to be the audience the show is targeted for, the kids, the younger part of the Brony fandom. I really do think the writers have taken into consideration that old and young people are watching this show together. Mainly the fact that because there are old people and sometimes their parents watching the show, kids aren't leaving it as early as they would other shows. The whole idea of being too old for a cartoon really isn't there, and so the kids are sticking with it. And the writers could be aware of this, and thus they're letting the show grow with the audience. Keep in mind, if someone was, say, 10 when they started watching the show, they're 17 now. They're going off to college. And so, obviously, they can handle more mature stories. It's why we're seeing things like Do Princesses Dream of Magic Sheep or The Perfect Pair in these later seasons instead of the earlier ones. Or even Fame and Misfortune pointed at the critics of the show. Now, of course, there's the risk that the young kids watching the show aren't going to enjoy these episodes much, but I think the older ones will enjoy the show not talking down to them. In fact, the young kids might like them too, because most kids' shows do tend to talk down to them. Either way, there's no denying the show has matured in the way it handles its characters, situation, and even its humor. And I'm sure I sound like a broken record at this point, but I believe that's a good thing. It's why the show has endured for 7 years. It is always growing and it is always changing. Some of these changes might be good, some of them might not be good, but at least it's taking that risk. And yeah, some people are going to be upset, like when certain characters are introduced, but overall, the fact that we do have this wealth of change is, well, good. There is no status quo for the show to be dragged into. So, yeah, while it's kind of sad we don't have as much slapstick comedy as we did in Season 1, we do have a giant world full of possibility, and really well-defined characters to guide us through that world. Ones that we can laugh or cry with or feel sorry for or feel proud of, and I'll take that over just generic slapstick any day. And like I said, we still have Pinky there, so she'll provide all the crazy antics we'll ever need. But as always, I could be wrong, and I could be missing things, or just letting my own optimism and love for the show blind me to something. If you think these changes are bad and you really do miss the slapstick of the first season, let me know. I'd really like to discuss this in the comments. And join me next time when I tackle an issue that really has been bugging me since Season 1. Just how exactly do clothes work in Equestria anyway? Until then, I am Blackbird, and I'll see you again for more Pony Talk.